Fergus Kiley. I'm Managing Director of Mount Hope Mining. I'm a geologist by trade, involved in the formation. I'm one of the founders of Mount Hope Mining. I spent sort of the better part of a decade working in various different operational style roles, exploration, mining. Mount Hope Mining is a company that I founded with a couple of other individuals. We have decided to create the company to provide investors with an opportunity to invest in high quality copper and gold exploration assets in the southern Cobar Basin in New South Wales. Ben Phillips is our non-executive chairman. Ben's a executive chair of another ASX company called Norfolk Minerals, and he's on the board of Many Peaks. The other board member is Todd Williams. So Todd Williams is a geologist by trade, but he's also the managing director of the vendor of the assets, Unico Silver. Comes with a technical background, but also sits in the same chair that I do. And Unico have showed significant success with their South American silver development assets that they've been bringing along for the last couple of years. So Todd's a strong candidate for me to lean on from a technical and commercial aspect. We took the ground on with the intention of providing investors an opportunity to get some high quality copper and gold exploration exposure. We've positioned the IPO for success. It has a really attractive valuations. We have 5 high-quality targets in the portfolio. We've got land access agreements with the key pastoralists, the landowners in the area. So there's strong support for us to be out on the ground. The same set of criteria that discovered the recent Federation mine that Aurelia has literally just started, that same criteria that found that mine. We've used, those metrics to define our targets. It's the same criteria that was used to define the recent Achilles discovery, which was Australian copper and gold. The same criteria that would have found the Endeavour mine in the north and the CSA and Great Cobar mines. The geological model that drives this system is well understood. There's a lot of historic data available, particularly on our ground as well, and we have taken that historic data. We've proved these targets up. They are untested for various means and reasons, and we're going to go out and test them. Our vision is to be on the ground completing that confirmatory soils program in the next month or so, and then that body of work then allows us to roll in the ground-based geophysics, so whether it's IP or IP and EM on top of that, and then bringing it into drilling. So we've sort of scoped out in the year 1 and year 2 budgets for each of those amounts, whether it was the minimum $5 million subscription or maximum $6 million subscription. And of course, all investors can go and see that clearly defined in Section 3 of the prospectus. It's bringing these targets through into a drill-ready stage and then drilling them well and truly within the first year. Should we see success from that, then there's the allocation, the budget allocation to do, follow-up diamond drilling, etc., to start working out what these things could look like, with greater certainty at depth. Mount Hope itself is a copper gold, it's a base and precious metals exploration project located in Cobar in New South Wales. Cobar is quite a unique mining jurisdiction. The style of projects that occur there are quite high grade, polymetallic style mineralisation. So you could have copper gold dominant systems, lead zinc silver dominant systems. It's a very well endowed mining belt. Mining's been occurring there since the late 1800s, 1870s. So the pedigree of the basin is tried, tested, which is important. And you want to be in the right belt of rocks. You want to be looking for the right commodities. So copper, gold, lead, zinc, silver, they're all, quite attractive commodities to be associated with. The ground itself, there's some historic mining operations at a couple of projects in and around our tenure, which is also important because that sort of helps to focus in on the area or de-risk part of the project from a geological perspective. All of those characteristics are what many geologists use as tools to select, good projects over bad projects. And so this particular project has a lot of the right ingredients that I was looking for. It's in a proven mining belt. It's high quality ground within that proven mining belt. It has on all the right structures, the things that control mineralisation in this area. We have a lot of those characteristics in our ground as well. When it comes to exploration itself, is an extremely risky business. One of the things, or the things that you should be doing to mitigate risk is trying to associate yourself with projects that have the best chance of success. There are, demonstrable aspects of this project that you can point to. We have some of them on our ground. We need to do further work, but we're certainly on the right path. The Cobar Basin itself is more or less 250 kilometres north-south, and a lot of the activity is, to date, mining activity has occurred in the northern part of the basin. Then you can sort of step into the central part of the basin, and certainly mining has occurred in the central part of the basin sort of since the 50s. Some pretty high-quality deposits, Namaji, Hera. Now, the southern part of the basin is where our tenements are. We have the historic Mount Hope copper mine, but when you look at Cobar itself, one of the primary controls for mineralisation is basin bounding structure. So Cobar Basin, or the super basin itself, is made up of a series of sub-basins, and each of those sub-basins are controlled by faults, and those faults extend from the north all the way down into the south. Your proximity to those faults is a key characteristic for the development of mineralisation. Our principal thesis is you have the same controls on mineralisation in the northern part of the basin. You need to be proximal to these basin bounding faults. You need a proximity to a heat source, which provides your mineralised fluids, and the faults allow that fluid to get taken up and concentrated into an area. And then you get down to the prospect scale things. So you need, like maybe it's a change in geology, it's an intersection between sort of subfaults, and all of the deposits throughout Cobar, because mining's been occurring there and exploration's been occurring there for so long, they are quite well understood. But it's really only in the last sort of decade or two that people have sort of done retrospective analysis of all of the mines and sort of back-solved how you would go and find all of them today. Modern exploration tools like geophysics just hasn't really been done to the level that it has in the north and the central part. All we're doing is we're taking the exploration concepts that drive the concepts that have been used to define the projects in the north and the central, and apply them to the south where they just haven't been done before, because up until now the search space has been in the north and the central because that's where all the mines have been found. And that's like one thing with this project that really attracted me to it. It's just taking tried and tested criteria that have demonstrated success over and over again and applying that to the extension of the search space. Mount Hope East is defined by a lead-in-soil geochemical anomaly on top of structure in the right setting, proximal to a heat source. That lead-in-soil anomaly is exceptionally large. It's 1,500 ppm plus. Mount Hope East is really interesting because it's a lead-in-soil geochemical anomaly northwest of the historic Mount Hope mine that went 10.5% copper at the time. Now, we're talking about lead in soil anomalism, but it's just the pathfinder for these massive sulfide bodies. They can be copper, lead, zinc, silver, gold dominant. So your sulfide species, whether it's chalcopyrite, sphalerite, etc. It's a booming lead in soil anomaly. And importantly, it's under very thin cover. It hasn't really seen modern exploration for like the last 30 years. So the ability to use airborne electromagnetic survey or ground IP as targeting tools hasn't been applied to our tenement package. We sort of have highlighted that these targets that we've got, we really feel like there's some quite low-hanging fruit, and it's just some exploration techniques that we can use that are really easy and quick to administer to prove up these targets. With all of our targets, we've developed them through a matrix system. Is the target in the right structural setting? Tick. Is the target in the right geological setting? Tick. Do we think it's close enough to a heat source, etc.? Tick. The targets that we've got, we have 5 of them. We've got Mount Hope East, Main Road East, Little Mount Solitary, Black Hill. These are all classic Cobar style polymetallic targets, and we want to see elevated soil geochemical anomalism. In particular, we want to see a lead in soil anomaly, which we have. You would then move into applying geophysics. So you would do either airborne or a ground-based EM survey. And then on top of that, you would then do a ground-based IP survey, induced polarisation. So EM will charge up the ground with electricity. If you've got a massive sulfide ore body at depth, it's a really good conductor of electricity, so it stands out. IP is good for detecting a disseminated sort of cloud of sulfides. What you'll typically see is this sort of cloud effect of disseminated sulfides. We need to go into each of those individual targets. We need to confirm that geochemical anomaly that's taken us to that area is in fact true and correct, and that'll help us define if there's something at depth to test with the drill rig. And then we roll the drill rig out on top of them and throw it through. So somewhere down deep in the mantle, you've got these hot hydrothermal fluids. They come up through the rock. They scavenge the copper. As they migrate through the rock further away from the heat source, you have the various metals drop out in zones. Zinc is far more mobile than copper. So these systems, you'll see zinc moving further away from the primary heat source, so the origin of the fluids. And then, if you step back, so you'll see like zinc and silver, and then you'll be coming back, you'll have lead and then copper. This incorporates sort of like a mineral systems type exploration approach. You can sort of track back to your heat source. So if you come up with a thesis that this intrusion is, the likely heat source that drives the mineralised fluids, and then so we're out here a couple of kilometres away and we're seeing higher, lead numbers or zinc numbers in soil, and then as we sort of step back closer, we're seeing that's dropping off and the copper grades might be picking up, etc. And so you use that to then sort of start to fingerprint your way into the system. You just use these tools, whether it's geophysics or geochem, to start bringing you in, so you might use airborne magnetics to map, and eventually you start to zero in on the sort of center circle, which is your ore body. All of our targets we have developed from data mining historical data on our tenure. Black Hill exists. It was first discovered as a geochemical anomaly in the 1970s by a company called Esso. Now, Esso is actually used to be the mineral exploration arm of Shell, the petroleum company. In the 70s, Esso defined a lead in soil or a base metal geochemical anomaly on Black Hill. At the time, they decided that it wasn't worth drilling because the surface expression of it was not large enough. Now, we know from looking at these Cobar style mines that they're in fact very high grade and have substantial vertical profile. We're quite excited by the fact that the anomaly that they found was sort of only 200 metres by sort of 400 metres, because that fits the characteristics of other projects in the basin. So it's got a strong geochemical anomaly. It's coincident copper, lead and zinc. And importantly, we have in 2021, Unico Silver, they flew an airborne EM survey across a portion of the tenements. And in Black Hill specifically, there is sort of coincident EM anomalies on that right structural setting with that base metal principally lead in soil geochemical anomaly. If that stands up, and we expect that it will, because not only was it defined by ESO in the 1970s, but CSA had the ground in the turn of the 2000s and they reproduced it again. So in 2007 or 2006, they completed a confirmatory geochemical survey over the top, recreating the exact same anomaly. Then we would look to do a ground-based IP and EM survey to give us a drill target at depth to aim for. Main Road East is a larger geochemical anomaly than, say, Black Hill. It's sort of almost a kilometre long and it's a couple of 100 metres wide. It was found by a group called RGC, and they were an exploration company that was quite big throughout Australia. They did a regional RAB, rotatory air blast drill program across the southern part of our tenure. The Main Road East area is a base metal plus some precious, so there's a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver, but it's principally a bit of lead, zinc, copper, geochem anomaly. Interestingly, there's some outcropping gossinous rock, what a rock with fresh sulfides at depth would look like. You've weathered out all the sulfides, and so you have this sort of boxwork structure, and they call that a gossin. So we've got gossinous material at surface, we've got a geochemical anomaly. We need to go back and confirm that geochemical anomaly. This one we would do probably with some RAB or auger drilling. We would apply surface base, EM and IP to define our target and then drill it. That one, though, is another one of the targets that was within the Unico airborne EM survey, and we do have priority 1 and priority 2 airborne EM targets proximal to that geochemical anomaly. So that one's another one that sort of really shapes up as a solid shot at the dartboard. Little Mount Solitary, again, another really interesting target. It's a really interesting structural setting. So we've got an intersection of west-northwest faults with some east-northeast faults. So it's the right structural setting. We have geochemical anomalism, base metals there, but there's quite a lot of precious metals in this area because to the north of Little Mount Solitary is the historic Mount Solitary gold mine. There is a heap of EM targets in that were defined from that EM survey. There has been a little bit of IP done on a small sort of postage stamp. Black Hill, Main Road East, Mount Hope East, Little Mount Solitary, none of them have been drilled before. So, that's the really exciting part about these targets. The Mount Solitary to Mount Solar gold trend, this target is different to the other 4. It's a gold-focused target that we have. In the northern part of the Cobar Basin, there's the Peak Perseverance goldfields. They've produced over 3 million ounces of gold, exceptionally high grade. It has anomalous gold or historic gold workings along a 7.5 kilometre corridor. Ground in between is all undercover. The search space is really in between the 2 bookends, which are the historic mines. We need to do some early stage geochem over the top of that. We think that's an attractive optionality, sort of option call on the gold and the base metals. We'll be listing Mount Hope Mining on the Australian Stock Exchange. The ticker will be MHM. The website itself is www.mounthope.mining.com.au. Investors will be able to find the prospectus, so they'll be able to download that and digest that. If you are looking for copper, gold, lead, zinc, silver exploration exposure, Mount Hope Mining has a high quality land package. We've got historic mines. The company has 5 key targets on our area that we'll be going out and starting work on immediately because our land access agreements are all in place with supportive landowners who want us to be on the ground and want to see economic development. If you're looking for copper and gold, high quality copper and gold exploration exposure in your portfolio in Australia and in a proven mining jurisdiction where people want you to be, you can't look much further than Mount Hope Mining.